Hey, Peyton, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. So, for those listeners who don't know you, you are a Salon Republic Valencia hairstylist. We've known each other for many years now. How many years?
I've
Five?
been a part of six,
Six? Oh my gosh, time
2019.
flies.
Yeah.
So, it was just, it was maybe a couple of months ago when I think it was either Donovan or Marissa were like, so, the eighth anniversary of the podcast is coming up. And I'm like, bullshit. But thinking back, we started this in 2017 and time just flies. Of course, there was that chunk of COVID that just,
Yeah.
was taken out of the calendar and we all kind of went into an alternate universe. But time flies. So it's been 6 years. You're a Santa Clarita Valley hairdresser who focuses on extensions, and you've been very successful as an independent hairstylist. And that's why I wanted to get you on here to talk about, the things that you've learned along the way and best practices and, talking to the audience about things that they can do, behind the chair, things they can do with their business and their clients that are invaluable to building a good book of business.
Yeah. I'm happy to be here and to dive into all of it. I feel like it's been a learning lesson, still is. You're never perfect at anything, but I feel like as long as you're okay not being perfect at anything, that's like the massive key to success in this business.
Perfectionism is a tough one, isn't it? People who
Absolutely.
try to do everything perfect, it just rarely works. And I would say after doing 450 or so episodes of this podcast and talking to a lot of, very well-known hairdressers, the one key is that the best people in this industry continue to learn. Even those people who are on stage, they have a thirst for education. They're in the audience as well as being on stage. They're online learning from people. So I'm glad you said that. I want to start right out of the gate with where you're from and why did you even become a hairstylist in the first place?
Yeah, it's kind of a funny story. I'm from Santa Clarita, born and raised. I currently live about an hour away from the salon now in Palmdale.
Okay.
Um, I never wanted to be a hairstylist, and I think anybody that knows me pre-hair, it's kind of funny that I dove into hair. I was the horse girl growing up. I ride dirt bikes. I'm not super into my own hair. I'm not super into makeup, fashion, any of that. I live a very, very active lifestyle, and I was really, really good at school. When it came to time to pick where I was going to go to college, I have two horses at home and I couldn't afford to go away and bring my horses with me. So I was looking at community college options and I just was not stoked. I was like, I feel like I'm further past this. I don't think that's going to push me. And luckily, I owe a lot to my parents in the fact that they were super supportive of me going to a trade school, which I feel like, especially when I was in that period of life, it was such a you have to go to college, you have to get into the big university, you have to have a big name and a degree. And I feel very thankful that I didn't have that pressure at home. Um, I always joke because they were like, you don't have to go to college, but you have to do something, figure it out, and we'll support you through it. And I always just say, with hair, it was really the only trade that I thought a female could go into. So I was like, all right, let's go tour some beauty schools and see how it goes. I ended up touring Paul Mitchell Sherman Oaks, and I was like, I actually like the idea of being my own boss. And you know what? They hit me with this is a recession proof career. And
Yeah.
that kind of was like, huh, I like that. And honestly, like through COVID, it has proven that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I decided to make the jump to hair school. I had a little bit of a heart attack because all of my friends went away to college and I had about a month before I started school. And I was like, shoot, I'm going to hate this. I'm going to be behind. But day one hair school, I was like, yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be and I'm going to make the most of it.
Amazing. So different to so many people's origin stories. Did your friends were they like, what the hell are you doing? Why are you going to hair school?
Kind of. I think it was a little bit of uncharted territory. Like I said, pretty much every single one of my friends went to a university or they did go to the community college, but had the plans of going to the university.
Hmm.
But yeah, it was kind of a weird pivot and a little untalked about, you know? I don't feel like I got too many questions from the outside just because it was, I don't know, I felt like everybody was looking and just waiting to see what was gonna happen.
Interesting. And yet part of what we talk about it, I like to talk about it in the industry, and now and then, I see others talking about it, is that it is a real career. I'm using, bunny ears here, and it's just why is it that in the history of this industry going way back before you and me, people didn't consider it a real job.
Yeah.
Yet we have beauty professionals who make tremendous money, well beyond the average income, in our society. Well, why is that, do you think?
You know, I have some opinions on this. I personally actually think it's our industry's fault in a little bit of a way. Is I feel like a lot of people that do hair don't take themselves serious as a business owner, and I'm at fault for that. I'm 9 years into the career, and honestly, I didn't really treat my business like an actual business
Mm.
until a couple years ago, and what I mean by that is, like, we have to make ourselves uncomfortable and go learn the business aspect of this career. Because doing hair is honestly the easy part, in my opinion. It's all the other stuff that makes us uncomfortable, like the numbers, the data, the vocabulary that we don't understand, and I feel like that's a big part that is missing when it comes to hairstylist.
Okay, well, I mean, so early in in the podcast interview here, we're getting into the stuff that I wanted to get into, and the stuff that makes you different, the stuff that makes you successful versus somebody who struggles. And so when did you in your 9 year career so far, when did you start realizing that you needed to learn more than just doing hair on your clients?
I will say I kind of accidentally fell into it, to be honest. I was at a point in my career, it was after COVID. You know, I had a failed partnership through that. I was now running a business that I was pretty successful and I was booked out, but I was kind of bored. Um, and I feel like my story is a little bit different than the average, but I was diving into education. I was like, you know what? I feel like I need something that's going to push me. And I fell into some education with a hair extension company, and they also help business owners learn how to track their metrics and grow their metrics. And once I got a little taste of that and a little taste of the success that comes with that, I was addicted.
Mm. Okay, so something that might have been uncomfortable for you became an addiction. And it's something that's obviously a healthy addiction for, it's one of the things that our industry notoriously, stereotypically hasn't been good at is the business aspect of what's going on. And so you were successful before. But it wasn't until you got together with this group, with this probably a coaching program in there, that you realized that there was more in there for you to do, and you actually liked it. I think that's probably the surprising part to most of our listeners. As they're listening to your story, is that you liked it, because I think it scares most people, right?
Right.
And I
What
mean,
scared me was the cap. Like, I felt like I had hit a cap of my growth, and I had a full clientele. I was working 5 days a week, every day was full, but I was like, "What's next?" You know, I got to the point where I was like, "Holy cow, is this what it's like for the next 30 years?" And that's what scared me. I needed room to grow.
okay, so I'm right with you. However, I do want to back up before
Yeah.
we get into like the numbers and all that. I do want to back up and ask the question, how did you become fully booked? I mean, and some of these things, the answer to that question might be natural to you. You might just naturally be good at certain soft skills with people. You're naturally good at the technical nature of doing hair. You might naturally be, going back to beauty school. But you've known lots of hairdressers as well, and I want you to kind of connect the dots between yourself, or at least compare the dots between yourself and somebody that you've seen struggle behind the chair. And what's the difference?
I think it's the ability to pivot. And again, it's probably going to be a theme throughout this whole podcast, but being able to be okay with being uncomfortable. I feel like people flee away from being uncomfortable, but really those are probably the constraints in your business. So, like for me personally, social media is not a fun thing. At least it used to not be. Now that I've like trained myself to get better at it, I do enjoy parts of it, but that's something that I feel like I dove into a little differently than the average hairstylist. Social media, an example. And I feel like everybody that you get on here is going to tell you you need to be on social media to grow a clientele. Do I think you could grow a clientele without one? Yeah, but you're going to do it so much faster if you just commit to showing up every day. That's something you'll see from me is I am on social media every single day. I show my face on social media. It's not just when you go to my profile, it's not just a hair wall. I have a lot of hair on there, but you also can see my face. You can see what I do outside of the salon. You can see a little bit of my personality. I think it's really important for clients to know who they're signing up to spend time with. And especially in a suite situation, when you're walking into Salon Republic and you're walking down the halls looking for your new hairstylist, it really helps when they know what color hair I have. They know what kind of style I have. So when they see me, they're like, oh, that's Peyton. I feel like I know her. And they feel
Yeah.
comfortable walking into my space.
So important. But so our marketing team goes out to salons and they do one-on-ones with our beauty professionals everywhere.
I've done one. Yeah.
You've done one. Well,
Yeah.
hopefully it was valuable.
Totally.
Good. So and then when I do panels in front of people, I did one at the Vagaro event a couple weeks ago. There were about 60 hairdressers in the audience there, and I had some panelists of people who've done great in the industry with a lot of great advice. It was shocking to me when I opened it up for questions to the audience how basic the questions were.
Mhm.
It was so shocking because I feel like, as somebody who's been putting out content for all these years, I feel like we need to kind of evolve the content and make sure it's like cutting edge and, make sure it's like the latest and greatest advice. But then every time that I have conversations with kind of like, average people who are just trying to build a business or growing their business, or, they've been in the industry for a while, so they're trying to make a transition from kind of pre-digital to post-digital. It's really continues to come down to the basics of what's
Absolutely.
important. And
I think
yeah,
I think that we are constantly trying to like chase another trend and reinvent the wheel. But I don't think that's the real key to success all the time. Like if something works, repeat it
keep
over
doing
and
it.
over and over again. Maybe adjust it, but I really think it all comes down to solving a problem. When people come to your page, are you going to solve a problem for them?
Right. That's right. But how do you solve the problem? So we're actually, so Marissa and I are going to do an episode on the podcast, which is simply us creating a Google business account. That's all we're going to do. Because I was standing there in front of everyone, and someone was asking about, whether Google was important and why she needed to be on there. And I'm sitting there listening to this. I'm like, oh my God, we're decades into this
Mhm.
and people are still not on Google, you know?
I
And
wasn't until 2 years ago.
see, there you go.
Yeah.
um, was it us that convinced you to be on there, or just common sense?
No, it's actually through the coaching with Harper Ellis that
Okay,
they
good.
run you through on how to do it. I had no clue.
Yeah.
That's like rocket science to a hairstylist, I'm telling you.
Totally. No, I get it. And so that's why, yet at the same time, it is kind of the fundamental basics of what is necessary to kind of be out there, right?
Totally, it should be the foundation.
It should. It
Yeah,
is the foundation, and the information is out there, but I totally get the the discomfort of kind of going on there and reading and like trying to get through it. So that's why we're going to do a podcast episode on it, because I realize still there's so many people who either haven't done it or aren't doing it well enough. And
right.
once you like learn how to do it, it's super easy,
Mhm.
and with so much value. It's like the disproportionate nature of like easy and enormously valuable is ridiculous. Okay, so you mentioned that you purposefully put your face on your Instagram account.
Yes.
So many people still don't do this.
It's
And
so hard to learn how to do, but you have
oh,
to.
it's so uncomfortable. I get it. Like I feel uncomfortable just like so many other people naturally feel uncomfortable. But the importance of it is so tremendous as a service provider, right?
Absolutely. I think it's your responsibility to do it. If you're not doing that, you are not stepping up for your business and you're not stepping up for your people.
Just think of how important it is for a new client to have an idea of what it's going to be like to come and sit in your chair for 2 hours. I mean, how basic is it, the kind of information of letting them know what you look like? Giving them a sense of comfort that here's what I look like, and you're going to be with me for 2 hours, and how much easier that's going to make it for somebody to book with you.
Absolutely. I think it is a world of a difference. And I also think it's important for the people that are coming to sit in your chair to actually enjoy you as a human. I think that's how you build client retention and like that's how you end up with clients that have been with you for 10, 20 years is building those relationships, but you got to kind of like the person that you're going to go spend a couple hours with.
Yeah, 100%. Those are the soft skills that
Yeah.
we're kind of mentioned before.
Mhm.
And this is a tough one because I think that a lot of people who are good at this are naturally good at this. They're naturally likable. However, I believe that it can also be learned. We
Absolutely.
all know people who are not very likable naturally, for whatever reason. Um, but I do believe that even if somebody is a little more confrontational and difficult or negative or some other qualities that make them generally less enjoyable to be around, I think, and I've actually seen um, people who tend to want to act like that learn to not act like that so much if they want to build a good business.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's putting your ego aside and just doing what needs to get done. I even say this when it comes to being a little more soft spoken and not outward with your emotions, attitude, any of that. I personally am not really a super outgoing type of human, but I think this career I signed up for that.
Hmm.
Yes, you can be it's a scale, right? You're never going to be like you have to be this specific box, and that's what makes you a good hairstylist. There is a range, but I do think you do need to have people skills if you are going to be working directly with the public. And this is actually a conversation I have a lot with my current co-stylist. She is so sweet, she's so quiet. And I have to coach her through these soft skills of saying, okay, you need to ask my clients at least 3 questions, and if they're not giving you anything back, that's when it's okay to be quiet. But I think it's really important to read what your clients need from the appointment. I have a ton of clients that come and sit in my chair, and it's being there and socializing that's recharging them. Yes, they're there for their hair and their maintenance and whatever, but it's also like how do they wanna spend their time? They're paying money to spend time away from their kids, their jobs, their
Hmm.
families, all these things. Yeah, you're going to get the couple clients that want to sit in your chair and not say a word, and that's totally fine. Let them have it. But the ones that sit there and they want to chat, you have to let them have that too.
Hmm. Totally. And I think, well, it kind of reminds me of my kids. I often make analogies to use my kids as kind of comparisons to just general human behavior. That's one of the great things about kids is they come out and it's just 100% human nature on display, right? For all of its good and all of its bad. And then of course you try to, teach and coach, into like the right kind of social behavior. But um, so my wife and I gave to my kids two questions to ask adults when we're in any kind of environment, because kids naturally are very insecure around adult strangers and they clam up and completely shut down. And but kind of forcing them, or at least guiding them, and into a conversation, in interaction with an adult, that's like interesting, it teaches them how to be what I actually think is more natural, which is to converse with another human. So you get all that kind of anxiety and stuff out of the way so you can actually engage. And so we give them two questions to say. Question number one is, what is your first job? So if you imagine like some adult friends of ours might come over for dinner or whatever, and
Right.
instead of letting our kids run upstairs and like be on their computers, we force them to interact with these adults.
I love that.
So one is, what is your first job? And it's perfect because regardless of who this adult is, everybody likes to talk about that. Nobody's asked them that probably in 30, 40 years. And they really like engaging with a little kid on something like that. And then
Right.
that, and it's like a 5 minute plus conversation with follow up questions. And then the second question is, if you're stuck on a desert island, what book would you take? And so two things to kind of force the conversation. So I like how you're kind of encouraging your co-stylist to come out of her shell.
Yeah, I think it's necessary. And I try to stress to her, I'm not trying to change you. I love you who you are. That's perfect, but we need to show the best side of you to the business.
Hmm. And more often than not, that person, who is shy, who is reluctant to engage in conversation, once that discomfort is removed and they get into a conversation where it's interesting, they enjoy it a lot more
Totally.
than standing there and being afraid to
Yeah.
say anything.
I know it because I was her. I was
Yeah,
so much of that when I was in
same.
hair school. Like, I remember the first time I had to wash a client's hair, and I was like, "I have to touch somebody's ear. That's weird." And now it's like I'm moving people's ears all day long and I don't think about it. It's the same thing with conversation. I felt that same way when it came to connecting with a stranger that I know nothing about, and we probably don't have that much in common. But now those people have become clients that have been with me for almost a decade, and I love them and I love their stories. So you're completely right. It does get easier as you go.
And more enjoyable and more
Totally.
satisfying. And
Yeah,
there's always points of connectivity from one human to a next, even if there's disagreements. And of course, if you
absolutely.
realize, like if there's a political conversation, and you realize you're not on the same side, then you don't go in that direction. You talk about something else.
Totally.
But
How's your dog?
how's your dog? Yeah. How about them Rams or whatever?
Right.
What other things did you see in the way that you were doing things that were successful versus other hairstylists in the environments you've been in, with if they were struggling?
I think something that I do differently in this industry is if you're focused on where you're going, it kind of the outside noise doesn't matter when you're looking next to you at like, oh, Susie over there is booked more than I am, or this person's doing this that way. There's a million ways to get to the same place. And I think if you're just focused on what you're doing and building your business that's true to you, the success will come. I think the more you look outward, when it's not looking for support, when it's looking to compare, there's problems and struggles with that. And I definitely had a phase in my career where I did that, but I genuinely think you can go further focusing on where you're going and then also bringing people with you. I think
Mhm.
having a support group and a community is really important.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And I mean, this is, I'm sure there's all sorts of little quips and examples of this, but um, yeah, that some people just can't help themselves, but distract themselves by watching everybody else
Totally. It's
versus
and
focusing on their own
nowadays I
stuff.
feel like it's hard. It's you have to train your brain to not compare yourself. We're scrolling through social media all day long, but
Yeah,
just because somebody's doing good doesn't mean you can't do good. And that's
right.
something that I've really, really learned is there is room for all of us. If you can just drop the competition, there are enough clients for everybody. There's enough space for everybody. Everybody can go social media viral, which that's never really the goal for me, but if that's what you're worried about, like, people scroll through how many pieces of content a day? Like, there's genuinely room for everybody to succeed.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, boiling it down to what all the listeners do for a living, it's really about filling your books. And there's plenty of clients out there to fill your books and the person's books next to you and the person's books next to you. And I'll go into something that I say now and then, and it's as true today as it was, I think, the first time I mentioned it, maybe, well, probably within the first couple episodes of the podcast. And that is, I'm shocked still how many people I meet out in the world who don't have a stable relationship, a consistent relationship with a hairdresser.
Yeah, it's and I feel like a little bit of that I won't put all of the blame on us, I'm kind of hard on the hairstylist, but I think a little bit of that is our fault. Like, we have to nurture the people that are feeding our business. We owe them that, they're spending a dollar's hard to get nowadays, and they're choosing to spend it with us. I think it's important to take care of our people the way that you would wanna be taken care of and kinda drop the ego, put it aside for a sec.
Yeah, 100%. I used to do these, what did we call them? Well, I guess you can call them like man on the street interviews.
Yeah,
Sometimes you see those, like Jay Leno show had them or whatever.
yeah,
And I don't know if you've noticed, but I mean, this is pre-COVID, so it's like ancient history, really. But I used to go onto the streets I did Hollywood, I did Santa Monica a few times, probably did Beverly Hills, and Donovan and I would go out there with a camera and a microphone, and I would talk to people on the street and about their experiences with our industry, about going to salons, how they interact with our industry, how they think about their hair and stuff like that. And it was like 75% of the people I ran into, they don't have a consistent cadence that they go to the salon. They might not go to the same person. Sometimes there'd be a lady who's, let's say, 30 years old or whatever, and she hadn't been in the salon in 8 months. And, I'm looking at her hair and I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, like, she needs to go to the salon, right? Like,
yeah.
and this, like, as part of the same conversation, how many times are we like, in a movie theater, in a show, or in any kind of crowd, and you look around and you're like, wow, I don't see anybody who has very good hair,
It's
like,
crazy. Shopping malls, when those were a thing, are
right,
the hardest thing to walk through as a stylist.
right, because everyone looks like shit.
Yeah.
And everyone needs color. And even somebody who maybe, got color, she's got 8-inch roots. And you're like, what the hell's going on here? Like, there's so much space for new clients, to get new clients, and to fill your books. Sometimes I hear that people have this sense of kind of scarcity, within the economy, that all the clients are taken, and everybody's already got somebody and all this stuff. I'm like, I think the exact opposite is true at scale, to an extreme degree.
I completely agree with you. I feel like if there is space on your books, it's because you are not doing something to fill those books. I feel like especially going back to social media, like just giving free education to the general public about how to wash your hair, how to style your hair,
Mm.
how often you should be coming in for maintenance, how often you should be getting a haircut. Those little things turn into money, revenue
Yep.
for a stylist so easily. Like I actually just hopped off a finance call and my retail sales are down. I haven't talked about what shampoo to buy on my Instagram in a couple weeks, and it's a direct reflection. And it goes not just for retail, it goes for new clients, it goes for rebooking percentages, all that stuff. But I feel like just throw the general public a bone, teach them something. I did a video the
100%.
other day of how to wash your hair because I'm sure hairstylists listening to this can relate, but like how many grown adults don't know actually how to properly shampoo their hair to make it clean?
That's right.
So just going back to solving problems, finding the pain points of your clients and meeting them where they're at. I think everybody is at a different point in a funnel. Like some people are ready to book, they just need to see one last before and after. Other people need to just get into the intro of being welcome into the salon world. And also, this industry can be kind of scary. So we need to drop the front and again meet them where they're at and make sure that they feel taken care of.
Hmm. 100%. Sometimes I think of it like a forest through the trees sort of metaphor, where, as a hairdresser, you're in hair all day, every day. All these things that seem basic to you don't seem worth mentioning to anybody because to you, they're so part of your everyday. That is not the case for the general public. The general public doesn't know, to use your example, how to properly wash their hair. I
Totally.
think about when I first went to a great barber, Sugar Skulls, Carlos um,
Yeah.
Sugar Skulls. Um, Listeners know Carlos very well. When I went to Carlos, he taught me how to blow dry my hair. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like I can blow dry my hair. I didn't even know
What's a
that I
blow
could blow
dryer?
dry my. And how many hairdressers, barbers had I been to? And not
Hmm.
one of them gave me the most basic information. And, you know, uh, it's just so hopefully, and of course, Carlos has built a great career around this. So think about the things that are so natural and normal to you, the things that you know so well. Don't assume that everybody else knows them. Assume everybody else doesn't know it, and go out there and just do a quick little thing and see how people react to it.
Exactly. And I admire what Carlos has done because he's also now protecting you coming back. Because if you walk out of his shop and don't know how to style your hair, you're going to hate your haircut. But with him telling you how to blow dry it, you're going to love your haircut because it's a badass haircut and you're going to want to come back. So I
Yeah.
think it helps get people in the door and it keeps them staying with you.
100%. So, and to carry that a little further, and I think this is valuable for hairdressers to kind of hear how clients see things because the client doesn't always tell you, about
They
the
usually
things they're
don't.
worried about. They usually don't, right?
Hmm.
So with Carlos, I remember explicitly, and it's been so many years now, I still remember going home. He gave me a little bit of an alternative cut, and there was so much about it that I liked, but there were some things I didn't like about it. But I felt comfortable going back to him and saying, this one part doesn't lay right, and when I tried that blow drying, when I tried adding tension with the brush that you recommended that I use, it didn't react the right way. And I was excited to go back to him and say, hey, that thing that you gave me, but what about this? And his eyes lit up and he's like, oh, well, then you could do this. And then, of course, he refined the cut because he didn't realize, I was a new client. So it's like there's a learning curve. And so he refined the cut to make sure that little thing didn't fly in that way. And then taught me something a little bit different about the blow dryer, a little tactic that I could use to avoid that problem. And what a tremendous value the client is getting from that hair expert. And that's loyalty and that's filling your books.
Absolutely. I feel like you have to take care of the people in your chair and they will respect that. Something that I actually have gotten around to saying to a lot of my clients recently is, hey, you and I are on the same team. At the end of the day, like I want you to love your hair probably more than you want you to love your hair. So if you're feeling away, you need to feel comfortable coming to me. And I always tell like a new client, I'm like, hey, I'm going to do my best today, but sometimes this takes a second to learn each other. It takes a second to figure out how you take care of your hair at home versus how I style it in the salon. I should be better at styling my hair or your hair, because I do it all day long every day. So if
Uh-huh.
there's something that you're struggling with, I need you to tell me that so I can fix it for your next appointment.
Totally. Totally. And it boils down to you as a hairdresser showing your client that you care. And
Totally.
if you do that kind of basic thing, um, few other people are doing it. So you're going to set yourself apart right there. And, and your retention is going to be much higher.
And you can't assume that the client knows anything. You can't assume that the client feels comfortable. So even
Right.
just telling them, like, it is okay if you have criticism, please let me know. That works wonders. And it takes one sentence. And most of the time, people are like, no, I love it. I'm good. But at least the floor is open going forward, you
Right.
know?
Right. Because most clients feel, I've heard this from many, many clients over all the years that I ask. I'm kind of a nuisance when I get into a new situation. I'm meeting new people and I ask them, because this is like my own little research for the podcast for the benefit of our listeners, as a client. So how often do you go? What is it like? And what annoys you and stuff? And oftentimes the client doesn't like, um, how their hairdresser goes on autopilot, and they feel like once they're on autopilot, they're rushing through doing the same service that they've done the previous 5 times, and they don't want to hear any feedback about it because they want to stay on autopilot. So
Totally.
that client is not going to say that her hair's flipping up in the wrong way, a week
Hmm.
after she leaves the salon, or that, her hair gets too frizzy and she's not going to ask how to fix it because she doesn't want to annoy the hairdresser who's standing behind her for the next hour and a half. She once it gets too uncomfortable enough times, she's going to find another hairdresser.
Yeah. And it's so unfortunate because that's completely preventable, you know? I feel like one, it's okay for your client to change their mind of what they want their hair to look like. That's normal. Humans do change. I also think hair changes. So what you were doing on your client the last 10 times might not work the 11th time. So I really think it's important to I have a conversation, like a full consultation with every single client that sits in my chair, whether I've done their hair one time or 1,000 times, because who am I to assume that things aren't changing? Everything's changing all the time.
Yeah. How long is your consultation usually?
It depends. If it's a new client or it's a current client that is completely changing their look, we spend 10, 15 minutes on a consultation. I feel like that's something as a stylist you have to dial in. I'm not going to spend more than that wasting time because time is money in this
Hmm.
career. But I think you have to get really to the point and figure out what they want quickly. But that all comes with knowing the right questions to ask. My favorite question to ask is when they show you an inspo photo, what do you not like about this photo? And that
Mm,
gets you to the result so much faster. It's incredible.
interesting.
Yeah.
So, an answer to that question might be what?
I don't like the tone of the highlights. I like
Mm,
the placement of the highlights. Or
right,
I don't like how dark her base is, but I like the color of the blonde.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So they show you a picture, but don't always tell you exactly what it is about the picture they like.
Yeah, even if it's the photo they love, there's probably a
Right,
part about it that they like, or I'm sorry, there's probably a part of it that they dislike. And
right,
it's your job to figure out what they dislike, so why don't we just ask them?
right.
Yeah,
No, that's super smart. Um, Okay, so earlier in the conversation here, we were going towards you learning about business and numbers and how you said it's become almost an addiction. You like it so much. So let's talk
gets
about
me
some of
fired up.
it gets you fired up. I love
Gets
it.
me fired up.
So let's talk about some of the details of that. What exactly are we talking about? Which numbers? Like, what do you use? Do you use QuickBooks? Like, how often do you look? Give us some details.
Um, I do use QuickBooks. I used to run my QuickBooks completely by myself. This last year, I did hire a financial team that helps me. It's a great company. It's called True Profit Salons. They help you dial in your profitability, which is awesome. And I love working with them because it's salon based. The owner actually owns a salon, which I think is really cool.
Mm.
So they understand the industry. But my point in saying that is
And
I
really
feel like
quick, sorry to interrupt, but I know the listeners are thinking, well, I don't have enough money in my budget to hire somebody like this. Like, how much does it cost?
um it depends. There's different levels. I'm at a level where they do run my payroll for me because I got to
Mm.
the point where I realized that me taking the hours to run my payroll and organize my books was costing me more money by not being in the salon.
Oh,
Does
yeah,
that make sense?
of
So,
course.
like, it actually made sense to pay someone and to go do the thing I'm good at. I'm not
Yeah.
good at the numbers. I love the numbers. That's not
Mhm.
my strong suit. I think I'm paying like 1,200 a month for that right now. I have coaching calls with them multiple times a month. I am still fully hands-on in my books, but I don't have the job of spending the hours behind my computer figuring out the nitty-gritty of it all.
Right. So that's more than a bookkeeper. I mean, that is a full-on salon coach.
Totally. And
Yeah.
I have gotten to the point where I can afford that now. I will
Mhm.
say I've been with them since May, so this is a newer thing for me.
Okay.
I was doing it totally alone, and you can absolutely be successful doing it alone. I just got to a point where my time was better spent somewhere else.
Mm.
But when it comes down to the numbers, I feel like as a stylist, it's important to know your numbers every single day. So when I finish a day at the salon, whether I do it the night when I'm leaving or I wake up and I do it first thing in the morning, I track my service revenue, I track my retail revenue, I track my hourly revenue, my average ticket price, I track my rebooking percentage, and I track my social media posts. So stories
Mhm.
and static posts.
Okay. So you're
I
doing these things on different platforms. So is one of them like a booking app?
So I have a spreadsheet for all of my metrics, my daily metrics, and then I use QuickBooks for my finances.
Mm. Okay. So are you manually entering into a spreadsheet?
I am
Oh
every
my
single day.
God.
Yeah.
Peyton
It's
Lambert. Look at
not
that.
it's
You're
not
a
as hard as it sounds.
spreadsheet jockey.
I'm not. That's the funny part. Is you have to find ways to make it easy for yourself. This sounds like daunting when I list it out, but I use Forest for a booking app, and I can go to my performance stat of the day, and it tells me these things.
Yeah.
I find it important to transfer it myself because it makes you accountable for that. If I were to
Uh,
just pull up my performance review of the day, yeah, I'm looking at numbers, but whatever, clear it. I'll look at it again tomorrow. But like ever since I started training somebody, I take this way more seriously because if you do not know your numbers, you cannot be accountable for your numbers. And if you're not accountable for your numbers, you can't grow your numbers.
yeah.
So I find it really, really important to know your numbers down to the day.
Yeah. Yeah. Very interesting. Very disciplined, highly disciplined you're talking about. And the employee that you're running the payroll for, is one of them you, and then the
Yeah,
other is your co
my
stylist.
co-stylist. Yep,
Got it.
both of
Okay.
us.
Anything you're seeing behind the chair these days that are like different? Your clients behaving differently in any way?
I feel like people are embracing natural a little bit more. Um, they're embracing natural with not being natural, if that makes sense, which is actually kind of a funky situation as a hairstylist because as a stylist, we need to be needed. So trying to find a way to be needed with the trends that are happening is kind of a tricky thing to navigate.
And so, how do you navigate those? I mean, do you have a client that comes in and she's like, I have gray roots. I'm 52 and I
Okay.
have gray roots. I want to go natural. And like, how do you do that?
I have had that. I'm actually in the process of transitioning somebody from like a level 3 permanent color for I don't even know how many years to her natural color. I number 1, hair health is number 1 to me. I will never sacrifice hair health for a desired result. I just think expectations are number 1. Um, so we're doing it slowly. We're starting to get her lighter, and then as we've gotten her lighter, we're starting to let her natural root grow down. I feel like at the end of the day, you just gotta figure out what they're having trouble with at home. Is it the maintenance? Is it the styling? Is it they don't like the way their hair looks? And just be honest. I feel like
Hmm.
there's a balance of, like, seeing a client as a dollar sign, but then also just trying to help them because I feel like the money will come as long as you're helping people. So, it's
Hmm.
just truly down to your core, you can fix a problem for somebody, you will find success in this industry.
Yeah. If you could wave a wand and change anything about the industry at all, what would it be?
I would say if I could change anything about the industry, it would be kind of what we touched on earlier about looking side to side rather than looking forward. I feel like this industry is so beautiful because we really don't have to have a cap. Our cap is our belief lid, and I feel like a lot of hairstylists, not everybody, but majority, the belief lid is really low because, we've been told hairstylist isn't a real career, or it's a hobby, or you can't make good money, or it's a part-time job. I feel like if we can get people past the idea of thinking that it's just a mediocre job, it is not a normal job. Like, we can literally change lives, so many lives, and if we can just get people to think past what the public sees about us, I feel like this industry is completely unstoppable and the best industry to be a part of.
And how do we do that?
I think it's training the next generation. I think it's important to pour what you are learning into somebody else. I have one co-stylist right now and plan on growing a team, and to me, the more I get to pour into them and have them kinda skip some of the mistakes that I've made, and they're gonna make plenty of their own, but if I can guide them and make success easy for them, I feel like I've really done my job.
Yeah. Well, this is pretty amazing. It's been great knowing you for all these years and love having you at Salon Republic. And thank you so much for sharing all of your advice. You've done great.
Thank you for having me. I'm super happy to be here.